Other than that, we don't want any of it. God calls us to be holy, to be righteous, to be set apart. Jesus said to be with it, to go and sin no more, to run the race to win, to beat your body, make it a slave. That flesh, we need to beat it down. And God will change us. Because if we do these things, we realize that His standard is perfection. Then we start to understand, and we don't take pride in our position of where we are or how far we've gone thus far. But with perfection as the goal, that constantly makes us go to God and present all our requests to Him, to cast all our cares on Him because He cares for us. Is it starting to make sense now of why His standard is perfection? Because God is perfect, and there is so much work that we need done in our lives. The problem is with American Christianity, and I'll just use that term to apply to all Christians who are lukewarm, is that we'll pick one of these and we'll say, I'm good. When in truth, we should be applying all of these to our lives. But are we disciplined to the point of where we recognize that? We walk through that pain, that conviction. We recognize that red flag that pops up, and instead of running away and going back to the ways of the world, that we go to God and we say, hey, God, this hurts. And I don't want to go through it, but I know that you'll take care of it. And then once we go over that hurdle, we look back and we say, I made such a big deal over nothing. Because now I've got joy and peace. And more importantly, the most important thing is that you get closer to Jesus Christ and you can hear Him a little bit better. You can hear Him a little bit better. That's what it's about. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. When we start laying down our lives and get serious and see the big picture of what God has and why His word's there and why He said what He said, the definitions of those words, we can start to apply that to our lives. It's not something we should just glance over or skim over or just pick out one or two and to justify where we think we are in God. But rather it should be something that points out areas in our life that we need to strive to continue to be disciplined, to exercise, to practice, so we can compete in that game, to run that race to win. But unfortunately, I think American Christianity has gotten to the point of where we don't want to assess our lives. We don't want to examine ourselves. And we get to the point of where we relinquish that responsibility, that individual responsibility for our lives and our actions, and we put it on a pastor. We put it on a deacon, an elder, or a youth leader. Well, I don't need to witness because the church is doing the outreach to the community. I just need to pay my tithe or put an offering. Wow. Since when did ever the church, the corporate church, take over the individual responsibility of you being a believer and being a testimony to those around you? The individual commands to be holy as He is holy, to be righteous, to know His will by renewing your mind daily. When has that ever been relinquished over to once on Sunday and maybe a youth group? And then when we get there, youth group and church and Bible study is, for the most part, pretty much useless. Because you talk about the world, you talk about funny jokes, you go through your three-point little sermon, and to try to draw people in when God is supposed to draw people to Himself. Our job is to stand on His truth and His word in Him and preach the message. The message that Jesus preached and the disciples was perfection, and that caused much pain. Remember the message that Jesus preached, we'll see it later on, where the message was so hard, it was like, well, this is a hard teaching. Who can stand under it? Who can do this? But just like the disciples say, it's because Jesus, you have the words of life. You are life. There's nowhere else to go. See, they were finally starting to understand a little bit at a time that they needed to rely on Him over and over again in light of His perfect word. It drives us to Him. That's what it's for. It drives us, it forces us to have that relation, to go deeper in that relationship with Christ.